Today, you're about to meet a very, very strong woman. 6 years ago, she was in a devastating car wreck that severed her left leg by a guardrail. And then, in order to remove her from the smoking wreckage, her right leg had to be dismembered. That day changed her life. Though she now lives life as a double amputee, this woman is not to be pitied. In fact, she says that losing both legs was the best thing to ever happen to her. And today, you will find out why. I'm Creflo, and this is your world.
Changing one life, time after time. Oh Lord, we do it all for you.
Through the trials I see, I'll always believe a new life starts with me. Oh, change your world today. Change is gonna come your way. Change and get an understanding. His grace will transform you.
Our guest today is not disabled. She's a successful entrepreneur and businesswoman. She's a proud mother of 3, and she is proof of miracles and the glory of God's grace. She is Keisha Green. Please welcome Keisha today to your world. Yes.
Hello, Dr. Dollar.
Keisha,
Nice
How
to
are
meet
you?
sir?
this is the Diva, y'all, and you can see why. Now, I am anxiously awaiting to hear your story because just hearing about it, reading it, it's already inspiring. Take us back to the circumstances that led up to you being in the car, and take us through that whole situation. I want you to invite us into your world. I think one of the things that I'd like to do in this segment is really hear your story because it's pretty fascinating. Here you sit, you're like amazing. You understand what I'm saying?
Thank you.
And you're gonna provide so much hope to amputees all over the world. You're gonna let them know that disabled is a word that doesn't need to be in their vocabulary.
Yes.
So take us into your world.
Well, first, I'd like to say, Dr. Dollar, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And, I just think about that day and spending time with my children, my 3 boys. I remember taking my son on that very day to his football practice. And I also remember telling him, come on, I wanted to go out that evening with my friends. And we went out that night and everything was fine. As we driving home, it's just like literally in a split second, my passenger, she thought we were gonna hit the car in front of us. She grabbed the wheel. The car went literally across all 4 lanes. And the guardrail came through and severed my legs immediately.
Came through the car?
Yes, through the engine block. And so this leg was severed immediately, and this leg was pinned in the middle by the guardrail. And at that point, I was still awake. And I just remember calling on Jesus. And I was like, I gotta get home to my kids. And one of the things I don't want people to take for granted is that I was literally the exit before my exit home.
Wow.
And for me, I was like, wow, I had came all the way from downtown and I'm in the Conyers area. So that's about a 40-minute drive. And on that evening, in that split second, everything changed. My friend was in the car, my cousin was in the back seat, and she was actually ejected out the back window. And immediately my response was to check for the safety of those that was in the car with me. So I remember calling out my friend's name, and her name was Keisha as well. And then I remember saying Alexis, and that was my cousin. And she was out on the trunk. And when I went to take my seatbelt off and to turn around and to pull her back in, my leg flew up on the steering wheel.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And I was like, oh, my leg is gone. But I still couldn't move. So that's when I realized that this leg was pinned. So I was actually stuck. And everybody just began to panic. And I just remember calling on Jesus, and things kind of went really fast from there. As the firemen arrived, and there was a gentleman, he blocked off the highway with his 18-wheeler truck. I like to call him an angel because we still haven't found him. And he said, the ambulance are on their way, and he began to pray. And I just remember him speaking in tongues, and I looked over at him, and I've never ever seen or heard from him again.
I got to believe it was an angel too. In fact, I kind of know it's an angel. I was in a similar car accident, and I actually saw those angels, and you'd be surprised how God, sends people your way. I'm just really blown away. You didn't go into shock or anything after you lost the first leg?
Well, normally they say if something that tragic happens that there's no pain, so I didn't have any pain immediately. I did begin to experience pain when they were cutting the guardrail out of this leg, and it was burning me. And times often I will look down at the limb and I can see the burn marks underneath, so I knew that it was burning me as they were cutting it out. And I just remember the firemen saying, ma'am, we're just trying to get you out of here. And I actually didn't know that they cut this leg off on the highway for about 3 years.
Really?
Yes, I never knew. I thought that they both were severed immediately, but then within reading some of the paperwork, I realized that they cut this one off. When they cut the guardrail out, they decided to cut the leg. I just remember when they picked me up, I felt very light. That evening, I never seen the firemen's faces. I never seen the EMTs, paramedics, or anything. I remember hearing someone say, take her to Gravy. And I say that was the Lord saying, you're on your way. And then I never seen the inside of the paramedics or anything. And I heard someone say, get off at this exit. For me, that was the Lord saying, you've made it. You've made it. So I don't ever remember seeing the inside of the hospital or anything until they say I spent 2 days on a respirator. I say I spent 2 days with the Lord.
You better come on now. Excuse me. It's just like, the whole experience as you're telling a story is it's so divine.
Yes.
It is as if, God was just wrapping you in his arms as you were going through all of this, and the comforting power of the Spirit of God in your life. And I'm hearing this, and I 100% agree with you, man. It was a divine experience having God just watching over his baby until we can get through this.
Well, on those 2 days, while I was with the Lord, he let me know, he said the legs that you had was not strong enough to walk into the territory that I have for you.
All right, now, see, I'm trying to carry myself right now, but we're going to have some church up in here now. What?
The legs that you had was not strong enough to walk into the territory that I have for you. He said, I will remove all the anger and the fear, and I'm going to place a peace over you that passes all understanding. And when I woke up, there was nothing but peace.
And look at her face too. She made me say, she gonna be you an angel yourself sitting up here on the couch. What did you begin to think? I mean the whole time you're being comforted through this probably painful and shocking and probably all the things that people would normally go through, including a visitation of fear and terror and hopelessness. And you didn't experience any of those things?
I didn't experience any of those things. And people often ask me, is there times when I feel down or sad? And I never spent time asking God why. I kept saying, what do you want me to do with this? I know that you did not place this on me to be a burden. What do you want me to do with it? So I immediately began seeking the what factor. And I think a lot of people spend a lot of time on the why opposed to what, because all things work together. And he just comforted me. And I knew it was gonna be something that most wouldn't understand. But what he gave me for that is he said, don't ask people who you are or what you should be. You're something undiscovered.
I'm trying to hold it together because I'm still in a couple of them things she done said right now. Were you always this strong in your faith before the accident?
I was already strong in my faith. I grew up in the church, but I grew up with religion with no relationship.
Did y'all hear that? She said she grew up with religion with no relationship. Now she got about one more time to say one of them nice phrases before I start shouting up here and tearing this set up. That is such a key.
Yes.
People do not understand. See, religion won't have you going through this like you're going through it. But when you know him,
Yes.
and you have a relationship with him, and you trust him, he can take you through the troubled water and let somebody tell you about the trouble later on.
Yes. Yes. Amen.
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 So, we talk about the what. You're in the hospital. You have 3 sons.
I have 3 sons.
How did they respond?
My sons responded very well. It was my youngest one at the time. He was 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really afraid because I was like that really cool, cute mom and everything. And I was like, oh, I don't know if he's going to be able to embrace me. And even myself, I spent 4 days woke before I looked at the legs. So I remember asking him, did he want to see? And he said yes. And I said, okay, I excused everybody out of the room. I wanted it to just be him and me. And I showed him. He climbed up, he gave me a hug. The next day he came back with about 20 cards that the kids in his class had drew and made for me. And he's like, my friend says this is his mom's number and he wants you to call her because he wants to come up here and see you. So I was like, wow, he's not only accepting me, but he's telling his friends about me, so he's excited. That was my main thing. Was once my kids accepted me and they were fine with it, I knew that that was all I needed. God had already let me know that he had territory.
So you didn't have any problems, and hold on to that territory too. I want to get right back to that. You didn't have any problems accepting yourself?
No.
And that's because of?
The legs I had wasn't strong enough to walk into the territory.
So you got a word from the Lord that allowed you to stand in the midst of a rough time.
Yes, because in that word, what he said is what you thought you were standing on was standing in your way.
The territory. Let's talk about that.
Nations.
Nations.
Yes.
What's God's plan for your life and the will of God for your life? What is it that causes you to get up in the morning? What is it that causes you to come on this set with such a spirit of joy and you're so hopeful and you're so inspiring? You got to understand, you're inspiring me.
Oh, thank
This
you.
is not quite what I thought this would be. Me sitting here trying to hold myself down and not embarrass you and me at the same time. But what is the inspiration and how is it moving you into what God spoke to you?
One of the things that allows me to get up and to be who it is that I've been assigned to be is that there's so many people, they face challenges and they just truly don't see that it's a way. I say to allow your trials to become your trails. And I just know that there's so many people out there, they have doubt. And I just believe if every day I just continue to be who I am, even if it's just taking my wheelchair apart and breaking it down and putting it outside of the car, and there's someone across the parking lot that just needs that, you know what? I can do this. I can do this. And I just feel honored to be chosen by God to do this assignment. And I have over 80-something women that have signed up to be a part of my Legless Divas and my Wheelchair Diva support group. And they're all under the age of 45.
Tell me about this support. What is one to expect when they become a part of it?
We're just really launching and beginning to do the programs, but being able to connect with other women. I call it bossing with ability. So I want to teach them how to boss with every ability that they have and to not be willing to be confined as what the world has told them they should, could, and would be. And also being inspired myself. When I'm with these women, I am humbly honored to be in their presence.
Walk us through the process of from the hospital to now entering into this new venture into your life.
Awaking in the hospital, I was, now today I look at it and I'm like, wow, you know, they had so many options for me.
Sure.
You know, you have swimming legs, we have running legs, we have walking legs. They have all kinds of things that you can have. And I was like, okay. And it wasn't until spending that intimate time with God, he began to show me things like the woman that I had taken care of for a whole year before my accident who couldn't walk. I never took care of her. She prepared me. Everything that I did for her, what allowed me to come directly home and never go into the rehabilitation center.
So it was that training back then, right?
Yes. And when they said most people go home in a year and they walk in 18 months. I remember listening, and as they went to walk out the door, I said, you said most people, right? The Lord brought me home in 3.5 weeks.
What?
The Lord brought me home in 3.5 weeks. I walked in 8 months.
Describe your family and your loved ones the day they saw you walking.
The first time I really walked publicly, I did it for my church, and I wanted to do it for my church because they had been praying for me, and I needed them to know that we serve a God that answers prayers. So when I walked for them, it was like a joy. You know, it was like we knew God could do it, and I wanted to really give them that. But something happened.
What happened?
I started spending time with the Lord, and he began to show me how I was being tricked. And that immediately upon him allowing me to know that the legs that I had wasn't strong enough to walk into the territory, people were offering me things to stand in my way again. And he said, here it is, I've created a lane that's just for you. And here it is, you're paying to blend in with what the world said you should be. And I stopped wearing the legs.
Wow. I mean, what you're saying, I can't use the word unbelievable because that's just not what we are, right? We believe.
Yes.
But it's such an encouraging thing. I'm reminded of Galatians chapter 1, where Paul said, I've got to make a decision. Either I'm going to be a servant to men or I'm going to be a servant to God.
Yes.
And you refuse to even allow image to rob you from the opportunity to be able to be a servant to God.
Yes.
So did you see this as almost like a badge that you could wear so that people could see the glory of God as they look at you and say all of what you couldn't do and you turn around and do it anyway? Did you see that as giving glory to God?
Yes, because I felt like when I was wearing the prosthetics, there is a way that I can blend in and I could cover up what God did. Everybody wouldn't know. But God showed me when I roll in that chair, you don't know if I was born that way. You don't know if I became sick. You don't know what happened. But you know that something happened and I know somebody. So it's undeniable.
I don't know if I've ever met anybody like you. I don't know. And I met a lot of people.
Yes.
But you have such a grace on you that it is so inspiring and so encouraging and so organic and so real. You know, in these days, the church has perfected phoniness to such a point. You don't know if this is just something they do when they're on the stage or do they live this way. And today, I feel like I'm having the honor of meeting someone who's so privileged to be in the Lord's service that it humbles me to know that there are people that live today who say, for God I live,
Yes.
and for God I die, but my life belongs to the Lord.
Yes.
Amen. That's a blessing. Um, I'm going to look at 3 phrases. I'm going to call those phrases out, and I want you to respond to those phrases. Don't sweat the small stuff.
Nothing's bigger than God.
Refuse to complain.
Each and every day that we wake up and we have breath in our body, everything else is changeable.
Somebody's problems are bigger than mine.
You have no idea what other people have gone
You
through,
better go.
and they don't look like what they've been through. So never assume. And if I can elaborate a little bit more
Sure.
on that one. Sometimes I will go places and I will park in a handicap spot. And because my upper image don't look gracefully broken, people would assume I don't belong there. I get stares, I get people telling me, you don't need to park there, my mom needs to park there. And I just say, people don't look like what they've been through, so don't assume.
People don't look like what they've been through. You might not look like what you've gone through. Our audience may not look like what they've gone through. And don't you agree? People think they know what people have gone through,
Yes.
but they have no idea what a person's gone through. And I'm gonna tell you something, that is a powerful, powerful word. And it should encourage us to not look like what we've gone through. You certainly don't look like what you've gone through.
I don't think we should look like what we've been through, but I don't want us to think because of what people look like that they haven't been through and that they're not going through.
Wow. So what are you now doing to minister to people who don't carry themselves with such confidence as you do? I mean, how do you encourage those people who are amputees? How do you encourage people who look at their situation and they say, this is the worst thing in life. My life is over. I don't have a life. Tell us really the plan and what God's put on your heart and how you minister in this way.
Well, now what I'm doing is I do elevation coaching to help people break past those barriers and those boundaries that they think are there, because it's really just a mind thing. I also have a company called Resilient Raw, which I bring women together. I brought a couple of my divas here today.
Did you? You have divas
yes,
here today?
So we have
Where you at,
Jasmine.
divas? Okay.
We have Jasmine. And so I've been bringing platforms for my amputee women and my wheelchair women, just bringing them to the forefront where they can be seen for who they are, not what they look like, but for who they are. I now do building, I do construction, I build luxury with accessibility, because I believe that just because a person doesn't have the accessibility to walk stairs and things like that doesn't mean that they shouldn't live in beautiful homes and go places to have beautiful service. When I became that woman, I realized that the places I would go to get my hair done, the places I would go to get my lashes, none of these places were accessible. And I just began to see so many gaps. And God said, I created a lane that was just for you. And so easily you're gonna be tricked to blend in with what the world says you should be. So he just began showing me things, my Legless Diva platform, just opportunity after opportunity God has brought to me from being who I am today for him. And I often say that the only people think that I'm legless is those that don't see the glory. And those that see the glory know that I'm 10 feet tall. I kick down doors everywhere I go.
You better go, man. Oh. I am so honored to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm very serious when I say this. I don't think I've never met anybody like you. You are knocking doors down. You are conquering. You are going where no man has gone before. And you're making a difference, and you're making a mark in the lives of people. And the grace of God is over your life. The grace of God accompanies your words and this mission that God has given you. May it not only rescue people from the ditch that they've fallen into, from that place of hopelessness, but through your life, through the grace that God has given you, through the love that He's given you for people, that you will lack in no good thing because of this is what I'm experiencing right now. You're expressing the love of the Father. And God loves us so much that He'll always have somebody somewhere ministering to whatever need exists. And you have absolutely been called into this kingdom for a time such as this. And I am grateful and I am thankful. Now I have a place I can go when I meet somebody that's down and out and think it's all over with. I'll tell them I know a diva. I met a diva who's knocking doors down. I met a diva who stands 10 feet tall. I met a diva. Girl, you're going to make me start shouting up in this place again. I'm honored to meet you. I'm so honored to meet you. This is a story and a needs that are being met. I've not seen this before. And hopefully, as it's happening to me right now, and hopefully our audience, that you're becoming even more sensitive and becoming more aware of the things that just all around us. Here's a woman of God who's gotten into construction. She's taken everything that she's gone through and she's turning it into ministry for people. And like I often say, when you do what you do out of a sincere heart, you will never need validation from anybody. And I can tell right now, you're not doing things to be validated by anybody. As long as you have God's approval, that's all the approval you need. Don't you appreciate our guest today? I'm always trying to figure out how can I have more impact and what else we can do. But then I've come to the point where I can respect lanes, and I love God so much that whatever the lane may be, it may not be a grace in my life to do it, but He always has a plan to bring somebody into place in the earth to minister to that need so that people can be happy. And through you, you're doing people good and you're making them happy. And I pray that the blessings of God will be upon your life, your family, your finances, and everything that you do. That this broadcast today, this program today, that you recognize what God has put in the earth. And so now, you know, in other nations of the world, people are gonna know about you. And right now I'm telling you, I'm not responsible for the phone calls and stuff that you get. It's not my fault. You came on this stage and you allowed the Spirit of God to minister to people who are watching you. If you could, before we end this today, what advice would you give to an amputee right now who's watching this broadcast? They're down. They feel like nobody loves me, God hates me, or He would have not allowed this to happen. And basically, they've lost their faith, and you know they're angry at God. All the things that you were blessed not to have to go through, but they are now presently going through it. What would you have to say to them today?
I would truly just say that it is the very thing that makes you different, that allows you to stand out. And I say that God doesn't shine a spotlight on anything to show what He can't do. So just trusting your process and saying, you know what, this really isn't that bad, because it's not. I don't spend my money on Louis Vuittons. I'm happy. You know, there's so many things where you could find gratefulness and trusting what God has called you to be to the earth. And if you know that a lot of times what you go through is not for you, it's to be used for others. And it didn't happen to you, but it happened for you. And by His grace, He's going to bring you through. Be encouraged. Be gracefully broken. Gracefully broken. See the grace of God. We are often looking for things in which you would say, if I still had my leg, it would be a miracle. But I often tell people this: I could still have my legs and not have my mind. and my mind not be able to tell my legs to walk.
I tell you what, I feel like I'm talking to Junior T.D. Jakes up here. I pray today that those of you who have had the honor and the privilege of tuning into this broadcast, that somehow you can get up and realize that life is not over. It's not over until it's over. You have a mind you can think with. You have other things that you can tap into. But more than that, you have a God who cares and a God that can make a way out of any way. If you trust him and if you believe in him, his grace is sufficient for you. No matter what the weakness, when you can see yourself in your weakness, Paul said, when I'm weak, then am I strong. There's something amazing about it. But sometimes people just don't understand that when you see yourself in a situation that's not normal, God makes up for it. And he makes you stronger than you have ever been and stronger than you will ever be in your life. I'm so glad we had this show. I have been impacted. I have been greatly affected by what I've heard today. God's real. And if you don't think he's real, voila, he's real. Amen. You know, grace is the unmerited, unearned, undeserved favor of God. And he's willing to show this favor to anyone who trusts him. He loves and accepts us just as we are, even in our darkest hour. When we're hurting, he comforts and encourages us. And the grace we receive from him strengthens us and enables us to reach out and encourage others. Keisha Green faced the hardest situation of life's challenges, and not by herself, no, but by the understanding of God's grace through faith. And you can too. Now, to receive all that grace has to offer, you must simply believe and receive what Jesus did for each one of us. I want you to watch this, and I'll see you next time right here on Your World.
This is Rob and Chrissy. Life has always got them on the go, working, spending time with their families, giving back to the community, and attending church each week. Rob and Chrissy love God, love their church, and love learning. However, they find that the busyness of life often stands in their way from studying God's Word. And when they do have time, the challenge is knowing where to start, what to study, how do they get the most out of the time they have. Introducing Grace Life Academy. Grace Life Academy is an online discipleship and learning website that provides you unlimited access to an entire library of video Bible studies from Creflo Ministries. All you have to do is pick one of the courses in the library. Begin your study by watching the video lessons. It's easy, it's fast, and great for the entire family.
Because of you, Creflo Ministries is providing a new understanding of grace and empowering change in the lives of millions of people every day. Thank you, partners and friends. Your love and financial support makes it possible to bring this message into millions of homes all across the globe.